If you'd like to make your NFL games a little more interesting, you've come to the right place. It's the Even Money Podcast with Ross Tucker and Steve Fezzik.
Yeah, Vegas, baby, Vegas. It is the Even Money Podcast, presented, of course, by DraftKings. I'm Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman, 5 teams, 7 years, and I am sounding a little bit better than I did on Sunday night's Ross Tucker football podcast with the 11th ranked high school football player in the country, Javen Williams, which a lot of people really enjoyed. Getting to hear what a 16-year-old who aspires to play in the NFL is thinking right now. And then yesterday's college draft podcast with Emery Hunt could barely talk in both those shows. So those of you that made it through those episodes, the college draft and the Ross Tucker football podcast, I salute you. That was a battle. I'm not 100% yet, but I think I sound at least a little bit more like my normal self. And thank goodness, because this is one of my favorite episodes every year. This is the one where we bring on grades. Our guy, Shaun Grady, who is one of our patrons, patreon.com/RT Media. Love chatting with Shaun and the gang all the time, especially on the Even Money thread over at Patreon. We got a private Tuckheads Slack channel. So if you become a patron, patreon.com/RT Media, you get to be a part of that private Slack channel. And this is the day, Steve Fezzik, at Fezzik Sports on social media, the only 2-time winner of the Super Bowl professional football gambling. This is the day, Steve, where we actually go even deeper into the numbers, which I love because grades will tell us things like how much we suck on Thursday night, or he has all kinds of things that you and I don't even know until he tells us.
I am looking forward to this, although I'm gonna predict right now he's not gonna find much that I sucked at last year. Let's hear it, grades.
No, I think you're right. So, Shaun, this is the second or third year we've done this. So I think some of the people know, but always got to get your background. I wish all of you, in all sincerity, ended up signing up as patrons, patreon.com/RT Media, so that you could actually see the beautiful spreadsheets that Grades sends me and then posts each and every week on the Ross Tucker football on our Slack channel, because it's absolutely glorious. So let's start there, Grades. Your background and how you became such a spreadsheet whiz.
Yeah, so spreadsheet whiz is it's just one of those things that I just love, and you don't find enough people who appreciate a good spreadsheet. So I've kind of found my calling and my home in the Even Money channel, where everyone gets as excited with a bit of color and a few plots. So that's very nice. But I'm one of a growing amount of NFL fans in Australia now. It's getting a lot bigger than it was when I first started watching games, maybe almost 30 years ago, with my dad, who's a Bills fan, watching him watch a few losing Super Bowls. I remember those. And I ended up becoming a Packers fan, playing a lot of Madden and just running up the score on mates before we headed to the pub on a Friday night was generally how our fandom grew.
That is so interesting. So your fandom grew by playing Madden?
Yeah, well, I first got into the game, but seeing my old man watch it. But then, mainly, those every Friday afternoon, my mate, who was ended up best man at our wedding, we would go over to his place and we would just absolutely just try and destroy each other and end up with games of 105 to 96, because we'd just drill each other, and there's no time for defense, no punting, all 2-point conversions. You just had to run it up, and then go out and spend a night on the daddy sodas and talk about that glorious victory.
So it's interesting because the NFL came out this week, and I'm going to talk about it on tomorrow's Ross Tucker football podcast. And next year they'll have 5 international games, 3 in the UK, 1 in Germany, 1 in Mexico. It feels like the NFL is becoming more popular in Australia, but evidently they don't feel like it's to that level. Do you sense it around you? Do you feel like the NFL is becoming more popular?
Oh yeah, it certainly is. Look, I understand that there's all big travel logistics with coming to play games in Australia. There are a few years in a row where they started the college season in Australia. They had the Sydney Bowl, and I would go to those games, and they would easily get 40,000, which is a decent crowd for Australian sport. And you would see all sorts of jerseys. Everyone would wear their jersey, a bit like they say the London game is. Everyone comes in their favourite team's jerseys. But for a couple of weeks ago, Super Bowl, it's on a month, kicks off on a Monday morning here. So people take the day off. The pub we went to watch it, you had to book a table weeks in advance. Otherwise, you weren't getting anywhere to watch it. So it's definitely growing.
That is awesome. I love hearing that. So is it growing because of the love of the sport, or is the betting component?
Look, I think a lot of the sport's growing because of the betting component. It helps that in the last maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, the NFL moved off pay TV and you can get a bit on free-to-air TV. But largely a lot of NFL and NBA fans is gambling based. Several years ago, that used to be how you would get access to NBA. They'd give you a free season pass to watch the NBA if you were a member of a particular bookmaker. You could stream it through their website, and that's how they got people into these American sports.
Wow, that's amazing. All right, so then I guess my question, I probably asked you this last year, how's Australian betting different than those of us that bet in the States? What's the difference, if there is any?
Well, I mean, from an outsider looking in, it seems like it's always been a lot easier for us to bet in Australia. I mean, we can all bet from 18. You'd be hard pressed to find any male between 18 and 50 without at least one betting app on their phone, because everyone bets. We have, it's changed a little bit now, but I remember when I was 5 years old at school on the big race day, on Melbourne Cup race day, every kid would take their money in and the classroom would run a sweep and there would be prizes for it. And so this was 5-year-old kids. Might be a little bit different now, but we're kind of introduced to it very early. We have lots of horse racing betting and lots of sports betting as well.
Steve, how about that, man? You're in Nevada. How about Shaun? You'd be hard pressed to find a male between 18 and 50 that doesn't have at least one sportsbook app on their phone.
So Shaun, you can bet at 18. Can you drink at 18 also?
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Dang, what this reminds me, like this revelation. Sometimes you just have this revelation, like in the movie War Dogs. They're gun running in the Middle East, and they're like, well, we don't have the money for the gas. And like Jonah Hill says, gas is free here. It's like, gas is free? I can bet at 18? Damn.
Oh, man. Great. That's amazing. All right. So if you had to rank it right now, before we get into specifically the knowledge that you got from Steve and I's, or the knowledge you can provide to us from what Steve and I did this year, what are the most popular codes of football kind of in order down there? Like if you had to rank it, I want you to include the NFL in terms of what people watch or bet on. Rank the different, I know you guys call them codes of different types of football.
Yeah. Okay. All right, if we're doing it, we'll say that horse racing is number 1. It's almost like 2-1. So it sort of sits on its own. But when we go to sports...
Hold on a second. I want to stop for a second. So horse racing's by far the most popular. What do you think every year when we talk about the Triple Crown and Steve talks about how bad a bet sports horse racing is?
Look, I don't even attempt to bet on horse racing. Look, if I was that good at betting on horse racing, I'd be a professional gambler, not working in data like I do. But I enjoy the challenge of horse racing a bit, and but yeah, if I don't know anything about it, I like to think that I know a little bit, and I enjoy the challenge of doing the form on the horse racing. And look, we've got a punters club here, and our group message on a Saturday race day, we'll get through thousands of messages in the 6 hours that the races are on, sharing tips, sharing form. So horse racing is extremely popular here. When it comes to football, though, sort of Aussie rules and rugby league, the top. Probably Aussie rules is number one, but it really depends on where you live. I'm in New South Wales. So New South Wales and Queensland on the East Coast are rugby league. Down south and across Victoria, South Australia, West Australia are all Aussie rules. So that it largely depends on basically where you're born and where you live, whether it's Aussie rules or rugby league. But Aussie rules is probably on top. Then you'd have rugby league. Rugby union is really going downhill. It's really lost a lot of fans lately, and so there's not a lot of gambling on it. And then probably I would say in terms of gambling, this is where the NBA and NFL fit in next. They would have a lot of gambling, a lot because we only get most of our sports only weekend here. So midweek, there's lots of other things, and with the time difference, we can get US sports. Monday and Tuesday are big days. And the other nice thing about our sport as well, with our football coaches, every game is its own time slot. So everyone can watch every game live. There's no simultaneous games in rugby league, same as Aussie rules. If you're a fan, I can watch all 8 rugby league games live and not miss anything.
Wow, that's awesome. You know what else is awesome? DraftKings, the leading sportsbook app, is here to help you and your friends get in the game with different ways to fund your DraftKings account. Did you know you can fund your DraftKings account with cash? Yep. Just sign up in the DraftKings Sportsbook app, select Fund with Cash in the payments section, get a digital barcode, then just take your cash and barcode to any one of our thousands of participating stores. Super easy. And while you're there, why not pick up some DraftKings gift cards? Don't know what to get your buddy for his birthday? DraftKings gift card. Want to say thanks to the neighbor who helped you carry a sofa up 3 flights of stairs? DraftKings gift card. Want to give yourself a Father's Day present? DraftKings gift card. Done and done. Just visit DraftKingsGiftCard.com to find a participating store near you. March is here. Get in the game with these 2 awesome, fun, and easy account funding options. All right, grades. We waited long enough. I've got your spreadsheet you sent me. You've got a million different things here. So I want you to kind of go down the line with what you thought was most interesting from how Steve and I did this year.
Cool. Yeah, well, I think straight away, best thing of the year, and was best thing for, I think, probably most people who follow the best bets, was to hit like a 65% strike rate on those best bets was just fantastic. Best year by far. I mean, historically, the best bets have been very good, but to hit, almost 2 in 3, and of those best bets, this was also the biggest year of best bets on teasers. And I know sometimes there's feedback, people saying, oh, why are you picking so many teasers? But I mean, when you're hitting 70% of them, and that's an extra 13 wins this year as compared to last year on the teasers. I mean, whether you like teasers or not, I think people should like winning more than anything else. So I just think that was just such a great performance this year to hit that so high. So that was one thing that just really stood out straight away.
So what was better, our teasers or just Steve by himself? So so the teasers had a 65% strike rate, but Steve's strike rate had to be pretty high just by himself, right?
It was exactly the same. 65.
Okay.
But when you take into account, we grade the best bets as if they're just a 1 unit bet with Steve, placing multiple units on different bets. Ultimately, if you followed just Steve, you would have come out on top further than just the best bets. But 65% for both of them was just fantastic.
And I know you had a question for Steve about totals.
Yeah, so every year it becomes it's a bit of a trend about most bets are always line or teaser bets, and there's never a huge amount of bets on the total. Is that a factor of the bets being done earlier in the week? Is that something you look to bet on later in the week, or is it just that betting on the line is better and easier?
A lot of it's the time that we go ahead and tape the show at Tuesday. It's not quite the sweet spot for the weather forecast. Really, Tuesday afternoon, then Tuesday night, we start getting our first decent weather forecasts. And I like to play games that I would look towards under anyways that are going to have some wind and have some rain and maybe some snow. And I don't have enough confidence to have them out Tuesday morning. So oftentimes I won't be playing them for a day. So that's certain. And I'm very reluctant to ever play an over without it being a dome or being a good forecast, because that can train wreck a over big time to get a windy day.
What else you got for us, Shaun? What are the other things that stood out to you about me, Steve, both of us this year?
Another good thing, a little bit talking on our bet types again. This was a pretty nice year for you, Ross, in terms of betting just on the line. There was one of your best bet, even better than your teasers this year. So you never went into the red for your bets on the line. You were always in the black, always looking good with these bets. So that was really good. Steve, actually, all bets combined after week one, never went into the red again. So week one was down a unit, and then after that, it was just all smooth sailing and some really nice results. There were a couple of negative weeks, but never actually got back below even, which was a real standout. Which again, that's the first time that's happened, to have that consistency from really early on, which was really good. One thing that did stand out again, and we did talk about it last year. Oh, sorry, Steve.
Just week one historically is extremely difficult, and here's why. I have more volume week one than any other week, but oftentimes I bet stuff 3-4 months ahead of time, and I'm laying 2 on a team, and the line goes up to 3.5, and I got to be honest, sometimes I'll play back plus 3.5 because I think the line should be 3. So I wind up with a portfolio where it all depends which show you caught. Did you catch me in April or May, or did you catch me in September, in terms of which side of a game I'm middling is on? So that those lines are massaged more than any other lines. I would say the first week, like in the NFL contest and the like, that is the most difficult week, because the odds makers have had 4 months to set the lines instead of 6 days in most weeks.
Yeah, the other thing I was going to mention, the trend continues. We talked about it last year. Weeks 8 to 10 just seem to be that down period again. I think we've got, out of all the data points, we've only had a couple of positive weeks between week 8 and 10 for the last 4 years, and that just seems to always be continuing.
Steve, is there any?
Last year, it's when some other things start happening in other sports.
Steve, is there any explanation to that? Evidently, 4 years in a row now, weeks 8 to 10, we have not been very good. I don't get it.
I get it. NBA starts, college basketball is starting. I need to be able to formulate a sentence when I go on my national media hits about what's going on with who's going to win the NBA and who's going to win March Madness. Not that I'm an expert on those two sports, but it takes away my time. And when I can just focus on football and nothing else is in my my distraction windows, that absolutely does help. And then I get used to it, and I can kind of manage it better after a couple of weeks of the jarring to my system it takes, because I got to juggle my schedule for it.
From my perspective, Shaun, I don't care at all. that the NBA or college hoops is starting, I have no explanation whatsoever for why I guess I'm not as good either.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I guess we'll see again next year whether we can turn that around. Next thing is probably just a bit more interest sake, because we always talk about, I think, at least half a dozen times a year, Ross, you'll claim you're not betting on a team anymore. So we'll see which team. So this year, you bet on the Steelers 13 times throughout the season. They were your most picked team. It's almost like you took it as a personal challenge when Steve said they weren't going to be favourites for the rest of the year. You really got behind it. And you actually bet on every single team this year as well. So lowest were Bears, Cardinals, Jags, and Panthers. You only bet on them 2 times. And that was similar for Steve. Those bad teams, Jags, Jets, and Bears, just didn't touch them once all year on the podcast. Whereas Steve spread his out. Bills, Raiders, and Vikings all got 7 plays each. But with the most successful team, Ross, for you was the Colts. They got you your most wins. You ended up 6 units from there. And Steve ended up 8 units just on bets on the Dolphins as well. So those are 2 nice ones. And for you, Ross, the Colts and the Bucks actually gave you a perfect season. So every time you picked Colts or Bucks, you won. And Steve, anytime you picked Broncos or Bills, you won this year. So that was just more an interesting little trend. What's it ultimately mean?
A couple thoughts on that. Okay, yeah. So first of all, grades. This is amazing. Can you post like these color coded? Can you post this stuff to the Slack channel?
It'll all go on Slack. Yep.
All right. So then you got literally everybody listening or watching on youtube.com/RossTuckerNFL. You got to become a patron, patreon.com/RTmedia, become a Tuckhead. So you can see, if you guys could see these spreadsheets, it's amazing. The second thing is, Steve, is any of that relevant to you moving forward or just kind of interesting to hear?
I think it does have some relevance because you always want to be careful that you're not biased too much in favor or against a certain team. So that's interesting how the Bills, a public team I was undefeated with. So, and they met expectations. They won 11 games. That was their season win number. So they certainly didn't outperform expectations. That I picked the right time to get on the Bills, who disappointed and started the year 7-5, and yet I was on them in the right spots.
Yeah.
What about? Go ahead,
I suppose it's one of the things I've learned as well from the podcast, like seeing the teams that were sort of left alone and didn't perform. That Billy, you lost on, like you lost 7 units just on the Jets, and you guys didn't even touch the Jags. Really, that's one thing I've really picked up from the podcast is just leave bad teams alone. If bad teams are bad, it's got to be a really good spot, and I really want to be confident in those before I start betting on those. It's kind of shows up in where you guys are making picks.
Tell me more about Steve's unbelievable year.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think I wrote to you that it was his record-breaking year. So in the 4 years that I've got really good data for, we've got this highest ever end of season, had the highest return on investment, highest strike rate on bets. He equaled the best ever week of an 11-unit profit, which is actually equal with your record, Ross. You were holding on to it since 2019. Had a 9 weeks in a row without a losing week. So went on an incredible run the second half of the regular season, where the worst result was a break-even week, 1 week, and everything else was profit. And look, excluding playoffs, because I think you both had 2 perfect weeks with only 1 bet, but Steve had 2 perfect weeks as well. One where he pulled 9-unit profit, and the other was an 11-unit profit. So look, it was such a phenomenal year. Look, it was getting to the point, almost time to call it the Steve and Money podcast. It was just amazing. It was a fantastic year.
So, all right. So here's my question now. What did you learn, if anything, from Steve this year? Like, or even the last 4 years, grades? Like, I try to learn from Steve. What have you learned from him?
Okay, I think like I feel like from the last, even with 4 years data, ever since the beginning. So I'm a much better gambler now. I don't I steer away from those needle in the haystack bets now. Or very, very rarely, maybe if I'm a bit bored for the Super Bowl and I want to do something. But yeah, those kind of needle in the haystacks completely gone. And I'm much more aware of ending up on the right side of the line. That's something I really focus on, and not, chasing it when I've, if I wanted to jump on something plus 4.5 and it comes into plus 2.5, not jumping on those bad bets as well. Another good one is I like is not really betting related, but talking in units instead of money. That's a good one because I don't have to tell my wife exactly how much a unit is. So if I say, we only lost 3 units. What's a unit mean to her? She doesn't know exactly what money that is. So that's a good win too.
Oh, man. That is amazing. You know what else is amazing? Athletic Greens. I started taking them because evidently everybody takes them. 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, adaptogens. I think it's actually made in New Zealand. So I bet you everybody in Australia crushes the Athletic Greens. Less than $3 a day. They have over 7,000 5-star reviews. Love that Tim Ferriss is in on this. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/money. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/money to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right. So I almost had a riot last week, Grades, when Steve didn't give out any bet. People were going crazy. So, Steve, you need to give out some bet right now, or at least some advice, because people got so mad at me last week. So maybe it's conference tournament, whatever it is. I don't know what it is. March Madness, conference tournaments versus the big dance. What do you got?
Got NBA, DraftKings, Atlanta Hawks. Blue Horseshoe loves the Hawks under 42.5 season wins. Minus 145. It's a lot of VIG. You don't pay the VIG when you cash your ticket, which you will.
Interesting. What about what advice do you have, Steve, about the conference tournament to start this weekend?
I would say in general, the pros love the conference tourneys much more than the big dance. We bet much more than the big dance. The reason being, motivation is equal in the big dance. Everyone is all in every game. That's not the case in conference tourneys. In fact, there's some savvy coaches. They're like, hey, we're going to be a 3 seed. Maybe we don't kill ourselves to win the conference tournament. And you've got some 6 and 7 seeds that could make a run. When they're playing a 10 seed in the first round, it's survive and advance. They don't care what their margin is necessarily. Now, it's true they'll play their starters the whole game, but oftentimes 5 minutes to go, they're perfectly happy to coast to the victory. So a team laying 20 points against a horrible team is fraught with danger. If you did nothing but take the absolute dregs of the world, the worst teams in conference, the teams like San Jose State, Nebraska, teams that won 10% of their games and just backed every one of them, you'll likely make money because Nebraska knows they're one and done. They're going to play one game and they're going home and they're all in that one conference tournament game. And they've had a horrendous year. They've basically quit on the year for the past 6 weeks. Well, now, you know what? Hey, you're telling me there's a chance. Win 4 games, I'm going dancing. And they will bring their full effort.
Grades, do you guys get into March Madness at all in Australia or not really?
No, college basketball doesn't get much of a run in Australia. College football does. But yeah, March Madness is almost non-existent.
That's so interesting because, Steve, isn't March Madness like second to the Super Bowl in terms of the most bet event?
March Madness is higher now than the Super Bowl just because there's 3 weeks of it. So Super Bowl is the biggest betting day, but event-wise, March Madness number one. And I got to tell you, Ross, the Vegas is exploding on a weekly basis. When I'm driving an I-15 into the Strip, so coming from the direction of Los Angeles, I go past the M, the South Point. I'm heading for the Strip, and there are billboards, electronic billboards on a seemingly a daily basis. Special event pricing, traffic delays, beware, added parking fees. I mean, Vegas is crazy right now. I have lived here for over 20 years. I have never seen the Strip as crowded as it was last Friday night, Metallica concert, and the tournament hasn't even started. And now we're going to have all the conference tournaments the week before here in town, like the Pac-12, etc. It is just going to be a zoo of craziness, and the weather's good as well, Ross. Get on a plane, get out here right now.
Check him out on social media at Fezzik Sports. Grades, I forget. Do you have a social media that people want to follow you and check you? I know they can chat with you on our Slack channel, patreon.com/RTmedia.
That's right. It's patreon.com/RTmedia. That's the best place to chat about all this and see all the bets every week and all the plots. Unless you want to hear me whinging about Australian soccer, you don't want to follow me on Twitter.
You know what, Grades? I know I speak for both Steve and I when I tell you, we appreciate greatly the unbelievable work you do every year. It's such valuable information. It's such a clean way to look at it. You're so reliable. Thank you so much for the great work you do. I know we have thousands and thousands of listeners or people that check us out, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. Really, really appreciate it.
Not a problem at all. It really, really is a labor of love. I must enjoy it to get up at, it's just gone 4 a.m. here, so I must enjoy it if I'm willing to do that for you.
You are an absolute rock star. I was going to ask you what time it was, and I thought, I don't even know if I want to know. Absolutely love this dude. Thank you so much. Good luck to you and everybody else this weekend. Hope you guys win some money.
Thanks for listening to the Even Money Podcast. Make sure to also subscribe to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, the Fantasy Feast, Business of Sports, and the College Draft. All available at Apple Podcasts, rosstucker.com, or wherever podcasts can be found.
A lot of times on the show, I mentioned DraftKings. Here's what you need to know. You got to be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. By the way, if what I was talking about included a deposit bonus, doesn't always, sometimes it does. Deposit bonus requires 25 times playthrough, and deposit bonuses are paid out in site credit.